Welcome to the Myself Wellness Podcast. I'm Charles Patti, the voice of Myself Wellness, along with my co-hosts Christina Thomas and Jamie Venzeo. 9 years ago, I began my journey to self-awareness and healing. Like many who have faced personal struggles, I felt lost and struggled to find lasting healing. It wasn't until I discovered alternative healing methods that I began to see a real change in my life. This show will help you unlock your true potential through healthy lifestyle practices and transformations. Join us as we explore personal stories, expert advice, and practical tips to help you step into your true potential and level up. Welcome to the Myself Wellness Podcast.
You would appreciate this. I haven't really shared this with a lot of people, but the head of the oncology floor, she's very well trained and versed in Western medicine, but she saw that I brought in the stone. And so she knew she could talk about certain stuff with me because I'm like, this is my chemo rock. My last cycle, she came in and said, I spoke with a friend of mine and she said that you got cancer because you had some healing you needed to do from a past life. I was just like kind of blown away by that. I was like, that's really interesting to hear. No matter what you believe, like whether it's true or not, like that energy transfer can happen, from lifetime to lifetime, if that's what we go through as humans. And I was just like, kind of blew my mind a little bit, so that I could heal other people. That was her point.
I get goosebumps.
If you think about it in like the big scheme of things, man, so it's my belief that we're all one collective consciousness, that separation is an illusion, and that this is like the manifestation of the collective mind of God, right? And that we're nothing separate from it. But the thing is like, if that's the truth, and like we're riding this roller coaster that is life, in like the big scheme of things, 70 to 100 years is what, man? It's nothing. It's not even like a half a blip.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, if this is a never ending roller coaster ride, we probably have been doing this for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
And I think that like, not only in this lifetime, but just in general, we're in this cycle of evolve or repeat. And so I even notice now in my journey, I'm at the place where like, I'll learn a lesson. Like I learned lessons a couple of years ago, right? And they were pretty tough lessons. And I'm like, oh, good. I'm glad I got through that. I don't have to deal with that anymore. And now like 2 years later, I'm learning the same lesson over again.
Sure.
But I notice the way that I'm reacting to the lesson is much different now. And so it's like, we're forever evolving into our higher selves again, man. And like, I think that it's like, I think that's one of my biggest messages that I try to give people is like, and I still fall short too, but like try not to get too emotionally involved or like serious about this ride, because like at the end of the day, we're supposed to enjoy the ride.
Yeah. So important.
Yeah, man.
So important.
That's exactly what he's doing, though. I mean, look at him. He's such an inspiration to so many people out there. Most people, they get this diagnosis and then their life just stops and it ends. But you're here spreading inspiration and hope to so many people that are struggling in the same way, where like I said, most people, their life would just stop and that's all that they can focus on.
Yeah.
But not you.
When we were watching you film your podcast with Sean French the other day, I was like, I want to have him on the show so badly, because like you are one of the most positive people I've ever seen, like, or met, and I try to embody that myself, but like, I'm listening to you and it's like, if anybody's utilizing the laws of attraction properly, it's you, man. And I guess my question to you is like, how do you stay so positive, brother?
I get asked this question a lot and it's so interesting to answer, because if you met Jace before cancer, he was a different guy. I had some life experiences that jaded me in a certain way about how the world works. And it really created a reality for me where, I would say people called me a realist, which I think is kind of just code for you're pessimistic sometimes. And I would lean that way. And I would say things like, oh, this isn't fair. Like looking at somebody doing better. There was a real reality where I wasn't optimistic. And that's one of the blessings that cancer gave me, was a route out of that mindset in my mind and in my brain. And I've just stuck with it ever since I was diagnosed. And it's changed my life for the better. I hope that everybody can have the opportunity to understand the power of finding like optimism and goodness.
To call you a warrior is an understatement, but like, I want you to know that, like, listen, like, you can't compare what I'm about to say, like, with what I went through to compare to like what you're going through. But like, one thing that gets me through my hardest days now is like when I was hooked on opiates really badly and I would get sick and I was going through withdrawals, it was like literally my own personal hell. It was so awful. It was brutal. And I go through days now, or like, where they're so tough and they're so brutal on me. And it's like, I don't feel like I can push forward anymore. And I say to myself, well, it's not as bad as being dope sick,
Mhm.
And I think like the way that you're going to be able to like move forward in life and really manifest your dreams and crush your goals and stay positive through it all, it's like once you get through to the other side of this completely, you're going to be like, it's not as bad as that was, man.
Yeah.
So it's like, in a way, like, what the trials and tribulations that you're going through right now are going to be like some of the most empowering things for you in the end, because like, if you can beat this, man, you can beat anything.
That's what I feel like. Yeah, I feel a renewed level of strength and determination that I didn't have before. And I'm always grateful for so many lessons cancer has taught me. I'm grateful for cancer. I really am, for at least my experience. There are plenty of reasons why cancer is awful, but finding the silver lining is just the key to recovery, and just gives you the life lessons you need to go forward in life. And that's what I'm grateful for. So I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, you compare the hardest moments to your hardest challenges. And when the hardest thing you've gone through is something like cancer or something like overcoming addiction, you have a level of strength that not a lot of people have. I mean, I can only imagine for you, Jamie, as an athlete, you can compare every race or athletic challenge to your hardest race. And you get to say, I can get through this. I've done something harder than this. I mean, it goes across so many things in life.
Yeah, it's funny because I was gonna ask, when you get dealt a hand of cards like that, and you basically are then, God kind of works in mysterious ways. He looks at you and goes, okay, you were maybe a little bit of a realist before this. Not only am I going to give you this trial and tribulation, I'm also going to make the world your audience, that are going to watch you in your hardest days, in the days where like you're at your lowest you've ever been. And I'm going to give you a platform where people are going to be, when we talk, like I would tell you at a certain point, I would be like, hey, you don't have to feel obligated to put something out. And you said, there are people depending on me to see my face in the morning that are going through worse situations than I'm going through, because they need that strength. And when you get put in a position in life where you're going through your hardest trial, and then God puts you on a platform where you have to inspire and you have to give strength to others, that type of discipline and mindset behind it, it's like, I can't even fathom what that's like, because at my lowest moments talking about the race, I'm an ass to myself. Like I go to the darkest places in my brain where you're exposed to like this side of yourself that you're almost uncomfortable to be around. And it's like, to take that mindset, being 30 miles into a 37-mile race, and then having to put that on a platform for people to draw inspiration from, it's like, dude, all the credit in the world for that.
We're all capable of being resilient. It's just a matter if you have the right ingredients at the right times to truly discover what you're capable of. And a lot of us put ourselves down. a lot of us are going through hard times where the challenge we're facing is overbearing and overwhelming. But if and when you go through that and overcome that challenge, you're rebirthed in a sense. Honestly, it feels that way. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same after the experiences you've gone through. I'm very curious to hear, because everybody goes through really hard life challenges. In the moments where you were at your lowest, what would you tell yourself to get through it? Or would you not have anything to get through it other than one foot in front of the other?
You know, it's funny. I always knew that something bigger was in store for me, because like I felt it deep down inside, and I know I'm a really good person. And I knew that, like, I used to always play this saying in my head where it's like, God gives its hardest trials or struggles to his strongest warriors, you know? And it's messed up, man, because like I used to actually have a roommate, and his name was Dan, and we'd be sitting at my house, and you know, I would be like up doing all kinds of things that I shouldn't be doing. And I would like look at him and I'd be like, man, I know I'm not supposed to be doing this right now. And I know that I'm supposed to get sober and I'm supposed to help people. I said, because I know that's what my purpose is. I was like, but I'm just too selfish to do it right now, and I'm not ready for it. And then so it's like, but then like after that, it got even worse.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, I kept having to go lower and lower and lower and lower. But then I also kept playing that saying, the other saying in my head that I knew, were like, the lower that you bounce, the farther that you fall down, the higher that you bounce back up. So it's like, I knew that I was supposed to get myself together, get sober, and keep on working on myself to heal so I could be of service and help other people. And then I got to tell you the truth, man. It was really Christina and her having our son, Charlie, that really just completely shifted the, like, where it's like, all right, man, it's not time to be selfish anymore, because life's not about you anymore.
Mm.
And if you value her or your son at all, you're going to get your life together, or else you're going to lose the most important thing to you. You know, listen, I don't want to talk about this kind of stuff too much, but I'll go into this real quickly. Is like, I had a relapse on alcohol 6 months after Charlie was born. Okay. Because I was sober, and I went to a bar and I like almost blacked out. And one of my buddies who was security drove me home. And when she opened up the door to let me in that night, I was like half blacked out, half not blacked out. And she was standing there with Charlie, and he was a baby. And I looked at them and I looked at the disgust in her face. And when I woke up the next day, I was like, dude, you need to do some deep dives with these different medicines to figure out why you keep doing the same thing.
Mm.
And I did a deeper dive with, you know, a compound that had been used for AUD in the 50s and, you know, was made illegal because it was a Schedule 1. And the thing is that during that experience, what happened was like I went inside my head and I basically lived my own personal hell. Okay. And my own personal hell was that her and Charlie were leaving me, and they like kept going away from me. And every time I would almost get to them, another door would shut in my face. And every time I'd go through that door, they were just getting too far away from me that I couldn't get to them. And at the end of the night, I realized, after the medicine was wearing off, I was like, my own personal hell is losing them. And if I don't quit drinking, I'm going to be living my own personal hell. And so after that night, I've never had a sip of alcohol since. Yeah, man.
It's so interesting that when you go through those moments of ultimatum in your life, however it's presented to you, the perspective you gain. And that's something I don't have the experience of having. I don't have a family yet. I have my girlfriend who is my family in my everyday life, and I have my parents who are my family, but I can't imagine what it's like when you have a child and the dedication to your significant other and to your child that you would have. I mean, I can only imagine it gives you so much strength to put anything that would separate that away. Why do you think so many people also are challenged by that? I mean, you went through and realized that's all you had. There are others that don't have that luxury. You know, I'm curious to hear about the illness of addiction and how that plays a role in kind of your everyday life.
So like when I think that for me personally, I'm just going to talk about myself. I'm not going to reflect on what other people might be going through.
Everybody's journey is different.
Everybody's journey is
same thing
different.
with cancer.
But like when I was a kid, my dad died, okay, when I was 6. And that was incredibly tough on me because, I mean, it would be tough on anybody, but like I went down this place where it was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die now. Like, and it was so scary to me. It was like, you know, my dad's dead and am I going to die now? Am I going to die today? And it like led me to this place of constant anxiety and depression. And it was this crippling fear of death where like, I was like, oh my gosh, like the first thing that I'd open my eyes in the morning and the first thing that would go through my head is, am I going to die today? You know? And so like, I found at a really young age that alcohol made that go away. It made me feel calm and relaxed, and it took the fear out of the equation. And so back to like your question, I really think that living in a constant state of fear is one of the reasons also why people try to self-medicate or escape. The thing is that using, you know, the kind of compounds that I used to heal, I think that one thing that those things did for me was they shifted me from living in a place of fear to a place in love. You know, it's like when I had these out-of-body experiences and this oneness with the universe and God and everything in existence, I realized at the end of the day that like death was really just an illusion. I mean, like, you know, I think that there's a physical death and then we become one with the universal source consciousness again, and then it probably manifests back into something else. You know, so it's like once I stopped living in fear and I went to a place of love, then all of a sudden my entire life shifted. And I also think that a lot of people aren't satisfied, they're not happy, and they don't know what their purpose is, right? So it's like everybody's trying to escape because they feel so lost. Like, what am I doing here? What's my purpose? And see, the thing is that once those kind of medicines helped me heal enough, it shifted me into my purpose. And then I've said it before and I'll say it again. I went from running away or trying to escape a life that I wasn't proud of living to the want to build a life that I could be proud of living.
It's so interesting hearing your journey with a different illness, because addiction, and I haven't gone through addiction, but I've heard it talked about as an illness. Is that safe to say?
You know, it's funny because they actually classified it as a disease and an illness. And you know what? I'm not a fan of that theory.
Why not?
I actually think it's more of like a spiritual malady, because the thing is that like, I don't identify as an addict anymore. And I don't identify as an alcoholic anymore. I used to be addicted to drugs and alcohol, but the fact is that the thought of doing those things doesn't even cross my mind anymore. You know, one thing that I noticed when I was going to the rooms of AA and stuff like that is like a lot of the people are kind of stuck in this, like it's a label that you get put on. I mean, people start meetings and they introduce themselves and the first thing they say is, hey, I'm Charles and I am an alcoholic. And like, I am is the most powerful statement that you can actually speak into existence, right? So anything you say after it, you become. So it's like, I don't say that. I mean, I just said it right there, but like, I wouldn't say that and actually put any meaning behind it, because I feel like that gets you stuck in a loop. It must be a really depressing way to live, to feel like you have this thing that's hanging over your head for the rest of your life. And what I also think is that I think that drugs and alcohol or sex or gambling or anything else that people self-medicate with is just a symptom of an underlying issue that usually stems from a traumatic experience, the loss of a loved one, a parent growing up, those kind of things. But like when you go deep within and do the inner work and heal yourself from those traumatic experiences, then the need to self-medicate those symptoms goes away.
I love your intentionality with words. I resonate with that. I would be in my shower, just, washing off my body after a week in the hospital where I hadn't showered all week and sweating and surgeries and different things on my body. And I would say to myself, I am beating cancer. Not I will beat cancer even always. I would say that too, but I am beating cancer. I have beat cancer. I would say those things because I agree with you. I believe words have a lot of power in terms of what you put out into the world. And they also have a lot of power in your brain and what your brain is doing to flow into the rest of your body, to heal it. So on a spiritual and scientific level, I think words have so much intention in our lives, and maybe not everyone thinks about that. So I resonate when you say that.
Everything's vibration, everything's frequency. And the thing is that let's just say that, part of what my theory is right in that we are all a part of this big collective consciousness, then we are the manifestors of reality and the co-creators of existence. And the words that I speak out of my mouth, I need to be very mindful about because I'm literally speaking vibrations out of my mouth out into the universe. And what I put out, I attract. So, listen, if I say, I am worthless or all of these kind of things, or I'm sick and, like those kind of things, you're going to attract more of that into your life. I have my 4.5-year-old son, or he's about to turn 5 actually next month. And like, his name's Charlie. And he's like, I am grateful. I am healthy. I am love. I am light. And we do positive affirmations together. And he's speaking these things out into existence because at the end of the day, we're biological computers and we're programming ourselves. What we consume through our eyes, through our ears, it's all programming us at all the time. And so like, if I'm saying all of these positive things about myself at a cellular level, my body's responding to that and it's actually becoming who I am.
Absolutely. And I would be curious. So no matter whether it's a spiritual challenge or an illness, other people play such a big role in helping. I have no shame or too much pride to admit that all of, any success I've seen in my life, but certainly getting through cancer has been attributed to the people around me in terms of my healing. What roles have, the people around you that love you played in your continued journey to heal and to better yourself? And I'm curious to hear from your perspective. I ask Sarah, my girlfriend, all the time, like, what is it like from the outside? I only get to live in the world of having cancer. What is that like watching someone you love go through something that's really challenging? What role does that play for you?
It was emotionally taxing for a long time because it was a shit show, absolute shit show. And, it's hard to look at somebody because when he is intoxicated, he's a completely different person. He turns into like the literal embodiment of the devil. Like his face changes, everything about him is a 180 from the person that you see right now. And he can be scary too. And just that he had this anger about him that would just come out. And now he's done so much work on himself to reverse all of that. It's like, sometimes it's scary. Like, I know he's not going to go back there, but what if he does? Like, there's always that little bit of what if, I know he's not, but there's the
what ifs.
The what if.
I live in that world. So, I've heard from cancer survivors, you beat cancer and it's great, but you then have to live every day with this new challenge of this mental battle of the what ifs. And you feel something in your body and you usually go right to what if that's cancer? What if that's this? What if that's that? And like to your point, there's always what ifs in our lives. How do we navigate around that? And I'm sure that's something you work with all the time. I mean, with people, there's people probably coming in for treatment who have anxiety from what ifs or also, past experiences I'm curious because I have a lot I'm trying to deal with. Tell me about the treatments that you support people with and how it helps them to overcome the anxieties of the what ifs or the maybe depression of the past or the challenges that they're facing.
So is it okay to say it once?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure, man. So like, we do offer ketamine therapy at our facility, and the thing is that people do have what ifs, like, like, what if this doesn't work for me because nothing else has, and I feel so hopeless and stuck, and I've been let down so many times because I was so hopeful that other things were going to work that they didn't. And, it's funny because I find myself having this conversation with our new clients all the time. We'll be sitting in our integration room, and I've got, either a husband or a wife that's going through it, and their significant other sitting there, and they're both crying and they're in tears. And I can just see they're just like, what if this doesn't work for me?
Mm.
And I'm like, you have no idea how many times I've had this exact same conversation with people when nothing else has ever worked for them. And then they come in here within 3 to 6 weeks, they have a completely different life. And the truth is that it's so different because none of the other pharmaceutical medications out there are actually doing neurological healing. And even going back to what I talked about with substance abuse issues, getting to the root issue and the root cause of why people are suffering to begin with. Listen, there's no antidepressant or benzo or anything else that's out there that if you take that medication, that it's going to help you process your past traumatic experiences.
Mhm.
These are just Band-Aids we're throwing on bullet wounds at the end of the day.
Mindset is everything. And if you don't think it's going to work, it's never going to work.
Mm.
Also, if you don't make any changes in your life, it's never going to work. You keep going back and repeating the same old unhealthy patterns. Nothing changes, nothing changes. And you really have to have that level of discipline to be able to apply these new things that the medicine is teaching you in your life
Mm.
and be able to take it and use it to your benefit and not just stew and, oh, I hate that it just told me that kind of thing. The medicine's a catalyst. It's not a magic pill.
Right.
Something was a magic pill, everybody would be doing it. It'd be easy.
And I think that that's what they try to do by pushing the other pharmaceutical medications on people. It's like, here's your pill and this is going to fix you.
Mhm.
And it's like, no, it's just covering up whatever actually that needs to be dealt with, and I think that, like, and with what Christina said is really important is like, we preach the medicine as a tool and a catalyst. It gives you the opportunity to grab the reins of your own life, but the medicine is just the beginning of the journey. It's like, it is all of the other healthy lifestyle practices that you put into place that are going to determine whether you have long-term success with the medicine or if you have to keep doing it over and over again because you think it's the final answer. It's kind of like with what you're going through, man. I mean, like, listen, like, the way that you're going to stay healthy and you're not going to have this come back into your life is because you are you're becoming the healthiest, high vibrational version of yourself by doing all of these healthy lifestyle practices, what you eat, what you watch. Like, another thing you asked about is like the people you're surrounded with. Listen, man, energy's contagious and people need to learn how to protect their own energy at the end of the day. People themselves can be a cancer. Okay. Because the fact is if you're sitting around and you're trying to manifest your dreams and you've got, that one person that's sitting there and saying, oh, listen, I'm a realist,
Mm.
going back to being a realist. And like, that's just like, listen, I'm a realist. That doesn't sound like it's possible. And
Yep.
see, I actually tell people being a realist is the way that manifestations die.
Yes.
Okay. It's a
Manifestation
manifestation killer at the end of the
It's
day.
super toxic.
When we
Absolutely.
first started, everybody said we were going to fail. Both of our parents,
Everybody.
both of them said, what are you going to do? What's your plan B? You guys are going to fail. You need to figure something else out. We had no support from anybody.
And so what
And
we
if we
did,
took that advice, we would have been dead in the water and we
Yeah.
would have failed by now.
And you would have just been doing something else anyways. Why limit yourself? So
well, that's the thing, man. Listen, Goggins or somebody else, I think it's Jacko, he talks about burn the boats.
yeah.
Like, burn the boats, burn the bridge. There's no plan B. And like, that's the thing though, man. If we are, and see, this is why I knew we weren't going to fail. Because if we are the manifestors of reality and the co-creators' existence, then the only limitations that I have are the ones that I place upon myself, or I let society or the matrix put upon me. And so the thing is that I stopped talking to everybody, man.
Mm.
There was like only like, it was just basically me and Christina and anybody that would like kind of believe in us. Dr. Ferber's been a believer, but I think we've even kind of blown his mind with as much as we have accomplished up to this point. And it's actually just now coming up on almost, 4.5 years into it, where some of the people that I stopped talking to because they were telling me that it wasn't going to work are starting to come back around and going, hey, you really did it, didn't you? And it's like for people that don't have medical backgrounds, but people that were just very passionate about something and weren't going to take no for an option, we went through a lot of doubt from a lot of people, but here we are, coming up on like 11,000 treatments later. Over 9 out of 10 people that walk through the doors of our clinic get the healing that they're looking for. And it just keeps getting better and better. And the craziest part is like 10 years ago when I was telling people about this, kind of healing, and everybody thought I was completely crazy back then. I was like watching a bunch of really amazing doctors and scientists that I had a ton of respect for, that were kind of like my heroes and my, like the people that I wanted to, that I was telling everybody about and watching all of their content a decade ago. I'm actually working with a lot of them now.
How cool is that?
Which
Yeah.
is super cool,
Cool.
man.
Awesome.
It's just like,
You manifested it.
100%,
and
man.
your purpose is driven to heal. I'm obsessed with this idea of people helping people. And
That's my new tagline. I've been saying it for a couple of weeks now.
it's a great principle. And when you meet somebody else who believes in that, it's one thing when they say it, it's another thing when you see it and you see what somebody's doing. And when I talk to both of you, I get that people helping people. I mean, you went through something yourself and you said, I want to help anybody going through this, or anybody even going through something else, but what I'm doing can help. I want to help them. And it's so important. I mean, we need those people. So I don't know anything about the treatments that you provide with the medicine that you have. I've never done it. I don't know a lot about it, but what I do know about it, it is highly ridiculed and scrutinized in mass media. Yet I'm sitting here talking to both of you and you're telling me about these tremendous breakthroughs that people have on it. Why is it so demonized if it's a vehicle for people to help people? I mean, that feels like an injustice to me.
I actually think it is. And listen, like, I think that like when it comes to psychedelic medicines, the fact is that what people do is instantly a lot of people will go to like the 60s and 70s counterculture where hippies were abusing and misusing the compounds and like, just using them as recreational drugs. Okay. And the fact is that anything can be abused, anything can be misused, but like, that's not what the compounds are really meant for. Think of these kind of as like a tool for a chemically induced meditative state at the deepest level possible. And what people also don't realize is a lot of these compounds, like, I mean, even LSD just showed amazing efficacy for autism. All right. But like, psilocybin mushrooms and ketamine, they're doing neurological healing to the brain. There's no other pharmaceutical medications out there that are doing that. So like whenever we've had these kind of traumatic experiences in our life, there's a ton of neurological damage that happens to our brain. And like our neurons aren't flowing through our pathways properly. We have decreased dopamine levels. And so like a lot of this stuff is actually things that none of the other pharmaceutical medications are going to be able to help. But what these medicines are doing are going in, remapping and restructuring the neural pathways in the brain, actually sprouting something called new dendrites off the pathways, which is doing like new neuroplasticity, new neural connections in the brain. It's also going in and turning on those receptors in the brain that create dopamine. So you have this natural feel-good chemical. It's your motivational chemical that starts producing more naturally. And then honestly, when people use this properly in the right setting as a tool for healing, people are going in and processing these past traumatic experiences or dealing with things that they don't even know that they need to deal with sometimes, and achieving like 20 years worth of talk therapy in 6 sessions at our facility. So, you're talking about expediting the healing process exponentially faster. And this is coming from somebody that went through 20 years of mental health issues and substance abuse problems. And, like nothing ever worked for me. And all of the sudden, I had an experience that completely shifted everything and started utilizing the compounds properly for the therapeutic value. And like today, I'm pharmaceutical medication free. I'm drug and alcohol free. I don't have any of the symptoms of all of the mental health issues and struggles that I went through. I mean, listen, I had been diagnosed as being bipolar and having OCD and clinically depressed and anxiety. And like none of the pharmaceutical medications ever worked for me. They actually always ended up making me worse. But this completely shifted everything. And if it wasn't for these compounds, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you right now. And like, I just want to let everybody know out there, because this is the truth, is like, I don't take psychedelics anymore, man. I'm one of the few people that's out here saying like, listen, like, I don't think that that's the answer and that everybody should continuously keep on doing it over and over again. But I also think that, if you take this medicine with the right intention behind it, it's almost magical what happens.
You're living proof of that. You used it as a vehicle to get to where you wanted to be. And then you said, it served its purpose.
Yeah.
But that's powerful. I'm really intrigued by all kinds of medicines at this point. I'm just now in a point in my life at 26 where I feel a necessity to discover and learn about not just traditional medicine and all of the innovations that have happened there, because there have been some tremendous innovations with traditional medicine, but also this emergence of what I'll call holistic remedies. And it's super interesting to talk to people like you who are experts in these topics and learn about what they're capable of doing. It's not a one size fits all. I think everybody has their own journey with it, but to hear that there are options is so important. When I was getting treatment, when I was getting chemotherapy, I had a moment where I was getting my PICC line, the wires inserted into my body where I'd get the medicine. I was getting them replaced. And I was sitting in a chair and I just started to cry because I was so overwhelmed by what I was going through. And a nurse came and sat next to me and saw that I was struggling and asked if she could share some advice. And I said, absolutely, I need help right now. And she said to me, I know you're going through a hard time, but the fact that you have options for cancer treatment is so incredible, because she works with people every day who have no options and they just have to hope for a miracle to occur. And it changed my outlook in that moment. And I'm so thankful she shared that with me. And the reason I bring that up is because through the medicine that you're providing, you're giving an opportunity for options so that somebody who is diagnosed with any sort of physical or mental ailment has another option if they find your company and find your content. And I think that's so important, just the power of options. And I learned that through that experience. So
I guess that opens up like a question that I'd love to ask you is like, is there any like more holistic kind of options that you've been utilizing in your healing journey that wouldn't be your typical Western medicine style? Or
yes. So cancer is so overwhelming. And when it comes to treatment, I rely on experts. So I did go through traditional treatment, and I'm still going through traditional treatments of chemotherapies, various medications, and I've learned a lot about the science of what those do, the good of what it does in getting rid of the cancer and the bad of the side effects of these treatments. And I found that there are a lot of holistic remedies that can help to not only get rid of some of these negative side effects, but actually to increase the effects of what the medicine is doing to my body in terms of, certain foods I'm eating can actually increase the effectiveness of chemo. I found that to be really interesting. So to answer your question, the foods I'm eating have become even more focused on being organic, but that isn't anything I wasn't necessarily doing before. There are a few things that I've done that I've not really ever tried before. One of those is I've actually participated in a sound healing, which was very interesting and something that I would have been open to before, but not really taken as seriously. And I worked with a specialist who came to my home and walked me through this whole process of sound healing. And there's a lot of pieces to it that I don't understand still. But I remember afterwards feeling a sense of healing, or maybe, as you said, a vibration that had occurred quite literally through the sound healing of the bowl that she was working with. And so sound healing is one of those answers. I've also, because it's been very, very well researched and actually recommended to me by a lot of people, dove into some cannabis use, which I have found personally to be great. And the moments where other medicines weren't working, or in moments where I was tired of taking another pill, I had the option to orally consume cannabis, THC, and I tested it out to see how it would work being somebody with cancer. I'd heard from other cancer patients it was great, but I didn't know how I was going to react. Everybody's body is different. And fortunately, I found that it took pain away. It helped me to eat when I didn't have an appetite, which is so important to eat while you're going through treatment. And so that really opened me up to the world of medical use for these compounds outside of traditional medicine. Cannabis is the only one I've used, really. So I don't know the effectiveness of the other holistic remedies that are out there. But again, talking to you and hearing about how compounds can support other ailments, it's opened me up to it. And that's why I've become curious about it.
Well, I love that. And thank you for your transparency. We do medical cannabis referrals from our facility. And I was wondering, I wanted to ask you if you were, and if you were actually getting any relief from like the nausea and being able to eat.
Yes. I actually, really interesting story. There's a medication called ondansetron, and it's an anti-nausea medication. Very common.
Zofran.
Yeah, Zofran. That's just the name on the bottle was ondansetron, which I thought was a really funny name, by the way.
That is a good name.
I remember they prescribed it, and I was sitting with my girlfriend saying, like, well, boogie. But it was like my saving grace meds because I was nauseous all the time from the chemotherapy. And going to refill prescriptions was a big chore to get into my car, drive. I mean, it was exhausting. And I ran out one night and I was nauseous. And I was gearing up for probably a really rough evening of vomiting and who knows what else. I was kicking myself for not having picked up the meds. And then I remembered reading and hearing that cannabis can alleviate nausea for cancer patients and for probably anybody. I mean, nausea is not exclusive to cancer. Not to mention we were going into the evening hours, and I'd also heard that cannabis can support going to sleep. So I said, all right, I'm going to put this to the test right now, because if it doesn't work, I'm going to be in for a night where I'm awake all night and vomiting. And I remember I consumed the cannabis and it helped me. I was not nauseous, and then my body became relaxed and I was able to fall asleep. And I just remember how excited I was the next morning. I was like almost in tears that it worked because of the alternative outcome and imagining how awful that is to go through. Having gone through it, of course, I've had those nights before, but it was this amazing discovery. So that's what makes me continue to be curious about these holistic remedies and these discoveries that people can make, because it can be nerve-wracking to take the leap into trying something new and trying a compound that you've heard about that might be demonized in the news. But if you're able to take that leap, you can change your life. And hopefully that story I shared can resonate with somebody if they're struggling with something, if they're struggling with problems with mental struggles or physical struggles, to look up you and what you do and maybe take a leap of their own to try something to heal themselves.
It all starts with a leap of faith.
Everything good starts with the leap of faith. When I was coming off of opiates and I was very nauseous and I couldn't eat anything and I just felt completely awful, and you're like an insomniac because you can't sleep, utilizing cannabis was very helpful for me. And so like I actually tell our clients that are coming off of opiates, because we do get tons of people off their opiate medication, or even fentanyl addiction and Subutex, Suboxone, methadone, all of those things at our clinic. I'm like, get a med card and use cannabis while you're detoxing off of this stuff, because it'll make your life so much better. You know, one of the things that when people are going through those kind of withdrawals is that they can't eat. They're nauseous, they're throwing up, things like that. And it actually settles your stomach and it gives you the ability to get some nutrients down your body and hold it down. So, you know, I think that there's a ton of different, like, I don't use cannabis anymore. I really don't. There's nothing against it. A couple times here and there I'd used it or whatever, and it just wasn't doing the same things for me as it used to. And it kind of was like making me less productive. But like, I'm a huge advocate and fan of it. And I suggest it to a lot of our clients. And I tell people in my early recovery, cannabis saved my life, man. You know, like when people are not drinking anymore and they've been drinking alcoholically or abusing alcohol for a number of years, I think cannabis, people always say, oh, you know, cannabis is such a gateway drug. And to be completely honest, I look at cannabis as more of an exit drug. You know, it's like it really helps people get off of all of these other harder drugs, because like at the end of the day, we're just self-medicating underlying issues or symptoms of underlying issues. And I think that cannabis is such a healthier option for people to do that with than all of these other pharmaceutical medications or hard drugs out there.
You made a great point earlier that I want to bring up again, which is you can abuse anything, really. I mean, we see abuse with sugar in our diets everywhere in the United States, and they bring all these other illnesses. But a lot of these things that get abused get demonized for that reason, because people abuse them more often than not, when in reality, things like cannabis or other medicines, when used properly in the right times and treated with professionals, they're medicines. They truly are. They will heal you. So it's unfortunate that the media is so centered around ridicule with some of these things, but
it's not good for business.
But it's so interesting to get the perspective of being on this side of trying to promote a message like this, because what we're talking about, and from my perspective, growing up in a very Christian household and having a mom that was like a helicopter mom, I loved her for it because it allowed me to miss a lot of the off ramps to doing bad stuff that I was grateful for. But there was a huge demonization of cannabis, a huge demonization of psychedelics, and it wasn't ill-intentioned on my mom's part. She had grown up in the 60s and 70s when this was being abused and when people were mistreating these compounds. But to get the perspective of when I was growing up, the only thing that I had that people gave, because I was an angry kid, and like I literally went, and they would when I go to the primary care, on my sheet it would literally say anger problems and like something else. It was like anger problems and allergic to cats. That's what it was. So it was literally like literally anger problems, allergic to cats. And it was like this label that was every primary care that I went to. It was like, you know, talking to me about these, how's your anger recently? And I was like, still bad. Like I still flip out. Luckily I had football as an outlet, but once I lost football, I was on the phone with my therapist at the time, and I was explaining a blow up that I had, and I blew up on somebody, and he was like, man, like, I think you need to start to look at other alternatives. And he actually mentioned cannabis at the time. And he was like, look, like, I think this needs to be, he said, I don't normally like do that, but I think you need to look into this as a potential thing. And again, my brain in that moment was looking at all the media around the negativity around cannabis. And then all of a sudden psychedelics come into my life through you guys and learning about it. And there's still so much media against it, yet all of the evidence from a therapeutic perspective is building on your guys' side. It's just frustrating at certain points to see the fact that we know it does so many good things, specifically speaking on the compounds that you guys work with. And the narrative is still taking months and years to change.
So here's a good example, okay? You know, I peek down rabbit holes sometimes because I like to educate myself, but like I'm living this part where it's like, it's a very unfortunate situation with what happened to Matthew Perry recently, okay? From Friends. He was in a hot tub and he recreationally took an anesthetic dose of ketamine in the hot tub. He was also on lorazepam, which is basically a benzodiazepine like Xanax. He was on buprenorphine, which is basically like Suboxone. It's something you use to come off of opiates. There was a cocktail of drugs in his bloodstream, but the whole headline, all you ever saw was ketamine kills Matthew Perry.
No, Matthew Perry dies from the acute effects of ketamine.
There it was. Okay, so like our PR team hit us up right when the story dropped, and they're like, this is so bad, it's awful. You know, like, what are you going to do? We need to make a statement or whatever. I'm like, let's watch it play out. You know, I want to take a look at the autopsy first before we actually figure out what we're doing here. And the truth is, it's like he had a cocktail in his system. He recreationally took an anesthetic dose of the medicine. And like, I mean, there's two things that really don't mix well. And that would be going into an anesthetic state and being in water because you're basically paralyzed and can't move. That's the one story that everybody's talking about right now. But I can give you 1,000 stories from our facility of where it saved people's lives and got them off all of their pharmaceutical medications. But when we're filming this content and we're trying to put these messages out there, for some reason, everything keeps getting suppressed so much. And it's just like, why is that? Why is it that all of the positive stories about the medicine are being fought against tooth and nail, but the one bad story about it is plastered everywhere?
And not to mention, so we're talking about something that has in therapeutic settings has 9 out of 10 people resolve their issues. And then when we're watching the Super Bowl, we're getting ads for pharmaceutical drugs that when all of a sudden they start listing all the side effects, it's like a book and a half long. And yet,
but people jump to take it, right?
Well, they're not jumping to take it for any other reason, but that's on the mainstream news sources that we're talking about. Like, that is a commercial.
They don't care. Everybody cares about the side effects of the medication we're giving, and they keep asking. The side effects are very minimal, but like, because it has such a scary name to it and such as like people are terrified, but yet they'll take the antidepressants that has 50 side effects, one that could be death. If you skip a dose or two, you might die. If you skip a dose of ketamine, you'll be fine.
Well, let's go to the fact that listen, when you research that online, it's always going to come up. It's a party drug. It's known as Special K. People go into K-holes, these kind of things, right? You never hear, Oh, it's the number one choice for pediatric sedation. So if your child that's only 18 months old needs surgery, they're going to give them ketamine because it's so
Well,
safe.
no,
Or about,
we
or
just met an OB who delivers babies. And she said sometimes when they're having a C-section and the epidural doesn't work, they give them ketamine. So that means that baby that hasn't even been born yet is being introduced to ketamine because they haven't taken it out of the mother's womb. So that just kind of goes to show you how safe the medication is to a newborn baby is getting minor doses of ketamine.
not to mention, it's on the back of every ambulance out there. So like if somebody was being combative or if somebody needed to be sedated out in the streets, a paramedic is going to administer a much higher dose of ketamine than what we would use at our facility to actually sedate that person out in the middle of public. And so it's like that's
And
how
that person's probably on other drugs too.
yeah. And so, but like that's how safe it is. But like you never hear any of that stuff. It's always the negative things that go with it. And then you have to go and wonder where it's like, why is so much negative information being pushed out about this compound when it's saving so many people's lives? And like, listen, I'll be open and I'll say it. I think it's probably because a lot of these pharmaceutical companies out there don't want to lose the reoccurring revenue from keeping everybody up like on these other pharmaceutical medications that you have to take every single day. It's bad for business when you can do 6 treatments and get people off 9 medications. And like, so it's like, that's why I actually think that all of this is happening. There's no reason that our ads get ripped down all of the time, or when we film content now, we have to beep words out all the time and stuff like that. Why is that? Why is that happening? But the one time something bad happens with the molecule, it's on the front of every single newspaper.
Not to mention, have you seen the viral clip of Camila Cabello and some other podcast host? And they're on a podcast and they're going back and forth, and they both related over the fact that they had anxiety, and they had this like, oh my God, you're taking an anti-anxiety medicine? Which one are you taking? And then they asked a responding question, and they were like, oh my God. And they had a literal celebration. You can watch this clip. They had a celebration over the fact that they were both on anti-anxiety medications.
Yeah. They were probably more excited that they felt somebody else going through what they were going through.
Or did they
Agreed.
get an
But
endorsement?
the fact that got,
Yeah.
the fact that
The medicine.
I
should
literally saw
necessarily-
9.7 million views on the clip of that being posted using the names of the drugs that they were both on. And it's, again, I'm not saying that if they're getting relief from that, all the better for them. And if they bond over the fact that they both get relief from that, I'm totally like, do what you have to do. But the fact that that can go up online and get the amount of viewers that it can get, and you're talking about a celebrity figure that is like well known and looked up to by millions of people, and that message just goes free, and then you have messages like we're trying to promote, and not even the fact that this is the only way, it's more so just here's the information. It's not where there is no like hard stance on it. It's just here's the information, make the decision for yourself. But when you can't, that access to information is stifled, you have a uneven amount of information presented in the other case, which again, we are all deep thinkers. Most people are like normal consumers. They see something, they are convinced by the marketing that is presented to them, and then they're off to the races with that solution.
As somebody who knows nothing about ketamine, nor has ever tried it, what do you look for in terms of, we'll call them qualifications? If somebody were to come in and say, I want this treatment, what do you look for to say that this person is qualified for this treatment or they're not? Or is anybody qualified for the treatment?
So, it's funny because a lot of places are promoting this as a last line of, like a last resort for people, last line of defense. This should be your last option. And there's clinics out there that won't even treat people unless they've been on 2 antidepressant medications before they actually try ketamine therapy. The truth is that I'm more of I think this should be a first line of defense kind of person. And the reason is because what we see at our facility on a daily basis, We treat depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse issues, OCD, bipolar disorder, autism, pain management. We're resetting the receptors in the brain that make people experience pain and getting them off their opioid medications. We've seen amazing results with anti-inflammatory diseases like Crohn's disease and things like that, because ketamine has massive anti-inflammatory properties to it, and it takes all the inflammation out of your body. So like once you take all the inflammation out of somebody's body, they can actually start to heal.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it's like, if this is helping people get off of all of the medications that they're normally having to take when they do treatments with us, well, then like, why wouldn't you want to do this first? Because like, then you'd save yourself from having to try 3 different ones that didn't work, or figure out which cocktail of medications work for you. Where like, we just had a buddy of ours, now he's a friend now, but like he's a Marine, and he was on 9 different medications that the VA had him on. And he thought I was nuts when I started telling him about this, and was like not supportive of it at all. And then all of a sudden he's like, you know, I've been hearing more about this, and I think this might be something I want to look into. He did the treatments with us now, and he's off all 9 of his medications. And after his 4th treatment, he comes into my office and he knocks on the door and he's like, can I talk to you for a minute, man? I'm like, yeah. And he looks at me and he goes, why isn't the VA telling everybody about this? He goes, I was on 9 different medications and I'm only 4 treatments in and I'm off all of them already. And he goes, this is like criminal. And I'm like, it's not good for business, man. I'm like, it's not good for business, because there's just a chain of different things that all of those things support by having to take all of those medications. You know, it's like you have the reoccurring revenue of going to the doctor every month, and you have the reoccurring revenue of the therapy, and you have the reoccurring revenue of having to fill your prescriptions every month. And it's like, it's this massive machine that keeps on going. And if you take that component out, the machine kind of shuts down, you know. And like, listen, like, I'm not trying to fight the system at all, because that's not what my intention is. I'm not here at war with, you know, pharma companies or anything like that. I'm fighting a war to help people heal.
We're people helping people.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's like Christina's new saying is, we're just people helping people. And the truth is that like, so like, I'm not out here trying to make a hit piece, or I'm not trying to go head to head with anybody out there. My intention behind all of this is to just tell people, hey, listen, I struggled for 20 years and nothing ever worked for me. And now I finally found something that did. And if you're going through anything similar to what I went through and nothing else has worked for you, and you're tired of feeling the way that you do, maybe this is a good option for you.
Options.
Options.
It's awful to take options away from people. So again, the fact that you are providing a new option for people is so important, and it gives them the opportunity to choose. And that's everything. That's whenever I'm sitting with any doctor and talking about my cancer, when they say I have a choice, I'm grateful for it. So you're doing so much good by providing a choice to people and giving them the opportunity to choose for themselves. What would you say to somebody who is, you know, grew up in the war against drugs, has heard about this, adamantly opposed, but you know that everything they're suffering from can be resolved by the solutions that you provide? What would you try to tell that person? And maybe I just said it, like, we have the solution for all your problems, but how can you effectively get through to somebody like that? Because there are a lot of those people out there.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
This is how I'm going to answer your question. I have this new, amazing, groundbreaking compound that is different from everything else, because it's actually going in and doing neurological healing to your brain. And a lot of people don't feel good because they don't have enough dopamine in their brain, right? Their dopamine levels are low. But this compound actually goes in and turns on the receptors in your brain that creates more dopamine naturally. And on top of that, instead of just covering up symptoms, this medicine is going to help you go into a dreamlike state where you're going to have very profound healing experiences. And through the course of 6 treatments, you're going to achieve 20 years worth of talk therapy, because it's getting away from treating the symptoms and it's actually getting to the root issue and the root cause. it's so safe, this compound, that they give it to babies for surgery. And it's the number one choice for pediatric sedation. And honestly, it's probably the safest, least toxic compound of its kind out of all of the other ones that are even similar to it. That compound is ketamine.
Huh. All right.
All right. And so like, I think that one of the things, the problems is because of all of the negative press that the medicine has got up to this point, people turn off their ears and have already made their mind up about the way they feel about it after they hear the name of it.
It's good marketing for you.
So you ready for this? Let's just change the name to something else real quickly, okay? That compound, that mystery compound, let's just give it another name. And then all of a sudden, he's like, doesn't that sound amazing? Not to mention that like some of the most successful, wealthy entrepreneurs on the planet are utilizing it for their own mental health issues, like Elon Musk, you know? And so it's like, if I were to give you that summary without using the real name of the compound, 99%, probably almost 100% of the public would be like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. I need that. Give me that.
Help me.
Yeah.
We should name it what is it?
Dantotron.
I know, Dantotron. That would make that would get
I was excited
Yeah.
to try Odantotron
right. But you can't
when I heard about
Yeah,
it.
You know,
I was like, that
you know,
sounds
so
great.
like, let's just give it a really cool name. We'll change it and then we'll use it for the therapeutic value and not talk about the recreational use of it, which would be bad, or, you know, or the people abusing it, which would be bad for any compound. And it would really change the opinions of a lot of people, and people would be much more open-minded to actually utilizing the compound because there wouldn't be the taboos and stigmas associated with it anymore.
What do you think it's going to take to get to the place where this medicine is accepted by the country and the world? I mean, maybe it's more accepted in other places of the world, but what is it going to take to be accepted?
You ready? I've been saying the same answer for the last 5 years, and as tacky as it may sound, that's what I really believe. Veterans, professional athletes, and celebrity endorsements. Okay? And the stories, not just all of them, but the stories, which is one thing that my Self-Wellness, our company, is very passionate about doing, is we get a ton of content from different people that have different symptoms, that are from different demographics of life. And we are showing the success stories with that because, like, listen, a lot of companies out there are super hyper focused on data. Okay. And like, I'm a fan of data. I think it's important. And I'm glad that there's a lot of other people out there collecting data because we're storytellers. Okay. And so like, I think that if I put a piece of paper in front of you and I say 9 out of 10 people are healing from this, you're going to be like, oh, wow, that sounds amazing. But if I show the mother whose 17-year-old son has been in and out of rehab in jail and she's crying because nothing's ever worked for him, and then all of a sudden he comes in and does treatments at our facility and he gets completely sober and he's rocking it at life and it works so well for him that she does the treatments and it ends up changing her life, which we have that story, that's what's going to make people open-minded and be like, you know what? Because then it's relatable. Oh, I've been through something similar to like that. Oh, if that worked for them, then it can possibly work for me. It's more of like a warm and
It's
fuzzy.
people helping people.
It's people helping people, and it's an emotional reaction of hope rather than some statistical numbers.
I love that. I hope people do find you that need that solution, need that help, because you're helping people.
And this is a part of your mission, Jace, moving forward in terms of going out and talking to the experts, because we've had this conversation in terms of building your platform for the future, because when you are granted by God the gifts that you've been given with the audience that you have, you and I have conversations, you feel the intensity of that moment. And what you and I have talked about is giving people, not saying this is the way and this isn't the way, and not creating the polarization that we love to create on social media, but just opening the door and the access to information.
Yeah, it's so important to me to showcase these options and solutions. And I say this all the time. I'm not an expert in medicine or nutrition, or I'm not a doctor. I'm just a 25-year-old, now 26, who got diagnosed with blood cancer. And that led me down a road of discovery. There are so many great solutions out there, and there's so many resources, but they're scattered and they can be hard to find. And fortunately, because there are so many people in this community now following my story and sharing with each other, I've discovered a lot of these things, or at least become aware of them. So I feel an obligation to be a centralized zone for this information and to not pick a side unless I feel strongly about something, but to act more in a sense of, this is my journey of discovery, and I hope that somebody else can learn alongside and to discover something for themselves and then go to that solution if it's right for them and get the healing that they need and to have those choices. And that's why I'm excited to talk with you both today and understand more about something that I have no idea about, but I've heard is actually a true medicine out there, and to have you as an expert talk about the truth behind what it's doing for people so that somebody watching can say, I resonate with that story that you told, or this is a solution I want to look into more, and can reach out to you, find out more, and then change their life for the better. That would be the best thing ever.
I love what you did right there, because it's a lot of like what our philosophy is and my self-wellness also is like, we're not a hierarchical organization where we think that we know what's best for you. Okay. Because like, I'm never going to tell people I think I know what's best for you. I'm like you, where it's like, I'm a guy who went through a lot and found something that worked really well for me, and I share my story. And if it sounds like something that people might be interested, then give it a try. But like at the end of the day though, I'm a fan of what works for people. Listen, man, I'm sitting here and saying that, this works, then we're helping people get off of their medications a lot of the time. But if you're on a medication and it works for you, fantastic.
Great.
I'm a fan of that too, man. I'm not trying to talk badly about any of the other stuff. I just want people to know, like you were saying, going back to that word, we have options out here, man. We have options. And so like, if something hasn't been working, here's another option, and let's just find what does work for you.
Right.
You know?
But as you shared, there are people that feel limited right now. And I really do. I hope they find you and reach out. And what is the best way to reach you? You have a website, or should they reach you on social?
Yeah, man. So yeah, we are My Self Wellness, and like, I mean, the links will be, it's myselfwellness.com, and the links will be at the bottom of the show and stuff like that. And like, listen, like I want one thing I really like, I want for the listeners to hear also out there is like, coming from somebody who's so inspirational and such a warrior like you, man.
Thanks.
Like, what's your message for the world, bro?
Oh man. My message for the world, I guess it's what we've been saying this whole time is people helping people. Be a person that helps the people around you. Do what you can to make the world a better place. And it sounds cliche, but if we all do our part, the ripple effects are tremendous. And that would be it, honestly. It's maybe I didn't have a perfect answer for that question already, but I believe so deeply in the people helping people. And that's what I would say. And to what you've been saying about the treatments that you provide, something popped into my head. I think there's a big difference between endorsing medicine or endorsing a product versus endorsing healing. And what I hear from you is you endorse healing. If your medicine works for you, great. But if it's not working for you, I would love for you to find healing. And I think you can find healing with me. That's what I'm hearing with you.
Go ahead, say it. We're just people help.
People help.
Well,
Yeah. We were close to being. Okay.
Right.
Can we redo that? No, and I feel like in this room right now, it's just a beacon of hope. And there is so much hope. And so many people in this room have brought hope to so many watching and struggling and following all of these channels. And thank you for being a beacon of hope.
Yeah, man. Thank you. You listen, you are the like you are, not the stone
You're the
that went
pebble.
in the pond. You're like the boulder that dropped in. And you're
The
creating
boulder that dropped into social
tidal
media.
waves of hope, man. I think that like I have so much respect for you, and I really look forward to continuing our friendship and spreading more positivity out there and being that beacon of light for other people.
Absolutely. And the feeling's mutual. Just meeting anybody who wants to do good like both of you are doing. I am grateful to be connected with you. And I certainly, if I ever meet anybody that I feel could truly benefit from the healing that you provide, I will be sending them your way.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, man. It means a lot.
Cool. Well, send us out, Charles.
Well, thank you for listening to another episode of the My Self Wellness Podcast. And just remember, if nobody's told you that they love you lately,
We
We do.